Okay, we'll hit confirm, and that is a transfer locked in. Free transfer, international player. Oh god, Bill's calling me. Bill, oh no. 3-0 Central Coast, 2-0 Western Sydney. This could be bad, this could be really bad. Calm everything, Shaun. It'll be fine. Bill, hi, how can I help you?
Shaun, what's this about a new signing for January?
Yes, so just to confirm, because I don't want the marketing team to get this wrong, we're signing WOUD, not Wood.
So Michael WOUD, not Chris Wood.
Yeah, the fans might get a bit too excited if they think it's Wood, but no, it's WOUD, a new goalkeeper because Stefan's leaving.
All right.
Yeah. Lower wage too, which you'll be happy about.
Yes. I rang to inform you of a wage issue at the club.
Okay, I mean, the wage budget's fine as far as I can see, but what's the issue?
We're reducing the budget by 40 grand due to the club's bank balance. Talk to you later.
Bill, that's not my fault, Bill. Bill, don't you hang up on me, Bill.
There's a party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 15 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Shaun Does FM with both the All Whites and AFC Auckland, and coming up today we take on the Newcastle Jets away from home. That one will be a bus trip, and then off the back of an Australian Cup tie where we take on Manningham United Blues, then we take on Sydney FC, currently up there near the top of the A-League. So if you're looking forward to those two games coming up in today's episode, as well as a recap of the most recent international window, and also we've got a player coming in early January for our A-League team, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But at the end of today's episode, we suffered another pretty humiliating defeat, that time to the Central Coast Mariners. If you missed the episode, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Thankfully, did also pick up a win in the New Zealand Derby over the Wellington Phoenix. But first up, off the back of that, the first two games of the four that we had to play before we got to this point for today's episode was in an international window, and we had a trip over to Asia with the All Whites. The first game on paper did look very winnable as we took on Yemen, and thankfully that was the case. We picked up a 5-1 win, was able to put out a pretty rotated team for this one, thing as the next game where we took on Oman, I thought was the toughest of our fixtures in that window, and thankfully that rotation did somewhat pay off. As you can see, really good performance. This one went up early thanks to a really nice Clayton Lewis free kick. Off the back of that, the Wayne train, I believe, scores his first goal for us in the save so far, and then Max Matter picked up a double. Ryan Thomas late on, he also picked up one to make it 5-1. They grabbed a goal back just before half-time, which at the time was pretty frustrating because it was the only shot of the first half and the only shot on target in the entire game. But thankfully, we pick up a 5-1 win over a team ranked well below us on the world rankings. And to be fair, the scoreline could have been quite similar in our next friendly when we took on Oman, but we did make things a bit tight late here in a 5-4 victory. We absolutely flew out of the gates in this game. Only 5 minutes gone, we're on the attack here. Nico Kerwin floats one there. They try and hit it away, but across the face of goal, not a good idea when you've got Chris Wood in your team. He grabs an early goal to give us a 1-0 lead, and from there, it was the Matthew Garbutt Shohei Kakache floats one nicely far post. He heads that one home to give us a 2-0 lead on the 20-minute mark, and only 10 minutes later, we made it 3-0, and I thought at this point, this was game over. Reece Dominic far post, Garbutt, yet another headed goal. Looks like our height might be a good factor against teams from Asia based on this performance, but 3-0. Then a bit of a balls up there from Nico Kerwin. To be fair, he's been quite good for us so far, but Paulson also could have done a bit better there, I think, but we do concede a goal, so it was 3-1 at half-time. But then early on in the second half, back on track, Matty Garbutt, a hat-trick of headers. He gets a hat-trick and puts us 4-1 up, and not too long off the back of that, only 10 minutes until the second half, we made it 5-1. Thomas here just curves on into that bottom right corner, albeit a bit of help from the post, and not quite the bottom right corner. Off the back of that, I made some changes, brought on a young 17-year-old and Nathan Palmer from Tauranga City, and it did impact our defence because we almost threw this one away. A goal there at the hour mark that made it 5-2. That wasn't too bad. but then at the 80-minute mark, they made it 5-3. That was a little bit more concerning. Started to try and time waste a little bit, and then just as we were about to enter injury time in this game, a nice finish there somehow that curves around everyone. They make it 5-4. Thankfully, we hold on and pick up a win. As you can see, stats-wise, we definitely should have been winning that game. Thankfully, we did, but certainly not a good idea. Some of those substitutions that I did make late in that game, but was trying to give some of our key players a rest before we do get stuck in to World Cup qualifying. In the next window, Nathan Palmer, not the greatest debut, truth be told. He does look quite promising though, out of Tauranga City. We'll see if he gets much more game time. To be fair, he was a late addition to our squad because Francis de Vries, he withdrew after we did select the squad for that window, which is the first time that has happened, but that might be a player to keep an eye out on either for the All Whites, or maybe we could try and get him to AFC Auckland, already wanted by some Australian clubs, so it might be a good idea to keep him in New Zealand. But thankfully 2 wins from that window, albeit that Oman won a little bit sketchy, but they were ranked above us, so that was a good result, and it does mean, yet again, we have moved slightly up the world rankings. We are now 89th inside of the top 90, so we're on the rise here with the New Zealand national team, albeit from now we do focus a little bit more on World Cup qualifying. That might stunt our rise up the world rankings, taking on teams like Papua New Guinea and Tahiti, albeit that next window we also take on Thailand. That could be an interesting game away from home. Those guys, they are ranked in 97th. It should be a game that we can win, but some decent players in that Thailand team, at least from when I was scouting for the A-League team. A couple did pop up, so we'll see if that is a tricky one, especially if we focus most of our top players on that World Cup qualifier, and it does end up being a close one against PNG. Also interesting to see they play Yemen just before they take us on do the War Elephants. Will be interesting to see how they get on compared to our 5-1 win over those guys. So 2 more wins with the All Whites, extending our unbeaten run with the national team. And off the back of that, played 2 games in the A-League with AFC Auckland, and thankfully got back on track off the back of that bad defeat against the Central Coast Mariners in yesterday's episode. First up, a 3-1 win over Melbourne City, who off the back of this did sack their new manager, of course, after they came after us during the off-season. But a 3-1 win here, early goal to Mohamed Ahataran, backed up pretty shortly by a Guavine Tormine penalty. They grabbed one early in the second half through James Caruso, but thankfully we put the cherry on top. Mohamed Ahataran, he picked up a double, has done a decent job, while Ronaldo has been out injured, albeit you can see he did come back in that game, did Ronaldo, during the last half hour off the bench, was only recommended for 45 minutes in these past 2 games, but Ahataran has been doing a very good job and helped us there to a 3-1 win in Melbourne over City. And off the back of that, we hosted the Brisbane Roar. Decent team this season. Took us a while to actually put these guys to bed at Mount Smart, but thankfully got the job done largely thanks to some substitutes. Matthew de Hotman de Villiers scored his first goal for the club at the 65-minute mark, having come on for Hassan Jallow. Off the back of that, Stefan Malk picked one up, and then late on, Louis Toomey scored an absolute screamer to make it 3-0. Stats-wise, I think we deserved a win from that game. The 3-0 scoreline probably flatters us a little bit, but thankfully 2 wins from 2 since you were last here. So it does mean, in terms of the A-League, actually in a pretty good position, only 3 points behind the Central Coast Mariners before we take on the Jets. Those guys take on Adelaide. You'd imagine they'd pick up 3 points from that game, but obviously that does mean that they have dropped points since you were last here. A 1-0 loss to Sydney Olympic. That was very surprising, even though it was away from home. So thankfully have closed the gap on top of the table and have also jumped above Sydney FC. Hopefully we can stay above them when we get into the second game of today's episode off the back of our Australian Cup tie, which does look very winnable when we take on the Manningham United Blues. They are down in, I believe, the 4th tier of this pyramid and aren't in very good form either. So that should be a game that we can win even with a rotated team. But first up today, we're going to take on the Newcastle Jets, and we have a bus trip before then, albeit a few quick things to cover off before we do get into that game. The first of which, we've got a transfer coming in early January, and it is a goalkeeper to come in for the soon-to-be departing Stefan Marinovic. And this is our man, it is Michael WOUD. So we're going to have two New Zealand international goalkeepers with us at AFC Auckland. His contract was expiring at the end of the year at Kyoto Sanga. We offered him a deal and he did accept it with pretty little hesitation, despite the fact a couple of other Japanese teams were after him. It does mean two non-homegrown goalkeepers still at AFC Auckland, which could be a mistake in a couple of years' time, but Michael WOUD is a goalkeeper with decent potential and isn't too much inferior to someone like Alex Paulson. As you can see there, pretty good potential and also decent current ability. He should fit in quite well with our AFC Auckland squad, so he'll come in as the new backup to Alex Paulson, mainly for next season. But of course, Stefan Marinovic is refusing to sign a new contract, so I thought we might as well get that deal done, even though it might mean that we have to do something interesting in the upcoming transfer window, maybe try and loan out Stefan just to make sure that we can fit Michael WOUD into our squad. So Michael WOUD will be a new goalkeeper here at AFC Auckland going into January. And also, we've had our wage budget reduced by quite a significant amount, albeit I did a lot of that spear as I was trying to make sure that we could actually sign the likes of Ronaldo at the start of the season, and needed quite a bit spare in the wage budget to make sure that we could afford his wage. For some reason, needed about 40k spare in the wage budget, even though he only wanted 11k a week, but it has been reduced by quite a significant amount. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll put in the screenshot from when it happened. So it does mean currently we're about 3k over our wage budget, albeit if we can get rid of Stefan Marinovic when we do get to January, that could sort that out, because we're going to look at the wage that Stefan is on. He is on 7k a week. Michael WOUD, when he comes in, is on, if I can find it, hopefully I can, not too sure. Let's see if we can have a look. Unfortunately, we cannot just yet, but I'm pretty sure he's on something closer to 2.5 to 3,000 pounds a week. So if we can get WOUD in and get rid of Marinovic in this upcoming window, it should mean that that wage budget will be sorted out nicely, and we should have some better goalkeepers than what we did in the first season of this save. But first up today, we take on the Newcastle Jets. They are a pretty mid-table team in the save. I say mid-table, actually currently they are inside of a relegation playoff spot, all the way down in 13th, and recent form not too good either. To be fair though, they are where they were predicted to finish, in 13th by the media. So I suppose they're not underperforming, but still, they do look one of the worst teams of those who are not new to the top tier for the second season of the save. Recent losses to Sydney, Macarthur and to Brisbane, a team that we just bet 3-0. So you'd like to think this will be a winnable game for us, even though it is away from home. Last season, we took these guys on and picked up 2 wins. Hopefully that will continue, especially because currently they have an interim manager in Mike Mulvey, the previous manager. He got sacked about the same time as the City one did. So we're going to be taking on here a team still looking for a new manager. So you'd like to think this is a game that we should be winning, especially as Ronaldo's back from injury and he can start in this upcoming game. So hopefully get some good impact there by the best player in the A-League, albeit Marco Tullio did have something to say about that in yesterday's episode. Before we get stuck in to this first game of today's episode, we haven't played Newcastle away from home yet, so it's time for a bus trip. And of course we do start off the bus trip by selecting the hotel. Had 2 options for this one, the Executive or the Hamilton on Everton. I'm a Liverpool fan and I'm still crying about Jurgen leaving because I'm recording this the day that got announced. Cheers Jurgen, that's going to be playing on my mind all honeymoon, but I do think the Executive looks better, also cheaper apparently, albeit not too sure if that'll be the case when we'd actually be playing this game, but it's got a pool. It just looks a bit nicer for a football team. Also, it's on Rugby Road. As much as we try and ignore the rugby factor on this channel, I'm still a New Zealander. Anything with rugby in it kind of tickles the fancy. So I think we'll stay at the Executive and make our way towards McDonald's Jones Stadium, which is only about 1 kilometre away. We'll just plug in the directions. And this is our journey to the ground, actually a bit longer than I said, about 1.5 kilometres, but still only a 3-minute drive. There's a couple of things we can look at on the way past. There's a West League club like we saw, I think that was back when we took on the MacArthur Bulls. We saw something like that, at least in one of the previous trips we did have it. In the New South Wales area also, we go past a couple of ovals, a skate park, Newcastle basketball, a 7-Eleven, and then make our way to the stadium right next to a harness racing track. So that could be interesting if we get a look at that when we do have a look at the stadium itself. So there could be a few stops on this one. We'll start to make our way on the journey, and this is where we do start off the executive in here in Newcastle, or at least in New Lambton, apparently not quite part of Newcastle, but I'm pretty sure it is. There's our hotel. Does look quite nice. We'll make our way now out onto the road, onto Rugby Road, and pass a few things on our way to the McDonald Jones Stadium. And the first point of interest on our way to the ground here is the West League Club over in Newcastle. To be fair, can't get much more of a look at it because I can't actually click on the road anymore, which is a bit of an issue as we try and continue on this trip to the ground. But there's the Leagues Club. To be fair, I think the other one, as I said, at one of the previous grounds, did look a little bit better than this one, but it might look nicer on the inside. But there is the local league club. And that was the only point of interest on Hobart Road actually, so it's time to hit a left here and start to make our way towards the stadium. And down Willow Road a bit, we eventually find a couple of other sporting venues that looks like here in the Newcastle suburbs. First up, the Arthur Eden Oval. Trying to have a look at it. It looks a little bit cricket-like, albeit could also be AFL. They both use similar size-shaped venues. Do those two codes. On the other side, this time we have this one is the Ford Oval. Also somewhere there is the New Lambton Skate Park. So a couple of parks here either side of this road, I imagine for kids or lower tier club sports over in Newcastle. But we'll keep making our way down Wallaroo Road, and I think there might be one more thing that we can check out. In fact, that might be the skate park there. Doesn't look too big, but to be fair, pretty similar size to what I've got here in my hometown. But time to make our way further up this road and get a bit closer where we need to go to head to the McDonald Jones Stadium. And having just hung a right down Womboyne Road, now it actually looks like that Arthur Eden Oval is actually more of a football venue based on these pictures. So maybe it's a football ground, not cricket or AFL. So it does feel like now starting to get a bit closer to our venue for today's game, if that is a sign. But that's interesting, an oval with football venues, considering that football's played not on an oval. But anyway, we'll keep making our way here down this road. And the reason there might be football grounds close to a place called an oval is because next door to them there is the Lambton High School, probably the school facilities, not the oval. So I think I'm going to balls that one up there. Apologies to the people of Newcastle who watch my videos and actually care about the bus trip segment, but there's Lambton High School. I imagine those football grounds might be theirs. Otherwise, that's still a really weird name thing. Football grounds on an oval. But we'll keep making our way now past the high school, and we should be getting quite close now to the stadium itself. And having just hung a right onto Young Road and also getting another look here at a different entrance to the Lambton High School, now we start to make our way, and you can see the stadium that we are playing at for this first game of today's episode. Not our first trip there with AFC Auckland, of course. We did play there last season, just didn't do a bus trip because Newcastle haven't been very good so far in this save. It is fair to say that coming up here is the McDonald Jones Stadium, the pride of Newcastle. I think also this is where probably more famously the Newcastle Knights, they play in the NRL. The Johns brothers used to tear things up for that team, and probably used to grab a 4 and 20 here from the 7-Eleven before or after the game. To be fair, that sounds quite tempting. Friday and whatnot, but there's the McDonald Jones Stadium. We'll just try and get a bit closer and have a look at it from the outside, and there it is once the main freight truck gets out the way. That's a better angle, somewhat picturesque. Just trying to figure out here where I can park. This looks quite similar situation to the CommBank Stadium earlier this week. Hopefully don't have the same issue with our performance on the day, but there's the McDonald Jones Stadium. We'll just try and see if we can get a better view of it from the actual outside and the entrances to the ground. And we've made our way into the car parks as well. It looks like a little bit closer to the entrance. It's got a ticket booth, and from what I can tell, not a heck of a lot else. There's something down here, that's the loading dock for all the food and whatnot, and all the drinks, I'd imagine. There's the merchandise area where you can buy all your Newcastle apparel, it must be. Going around the stadium just a little bit more. Looks pretty similar all around the outside from the front. Anyway, we'll see if we can get past the fence. We actually can. There is the Newcastle Knights Club shop, and also looks like the Sydney Sixers and Cricket New South Wales as well, just going around this area. And now we'll try and find our way to the North car park. Ooh, there's different areas for the car parking. We could put our bus any old place here at McDonald's Jones Stadium. Can we go through that gate? No, we can't. And I think that's about as far as we can go, unfortunately. Oh no, wait, we can go this way, so we'll make our way into the big barren empty car park. Lots of parking on this side, and I think somewhere around there might be the racetrack for the harness horses, but there you can start to see the stand there in McDonald Jones Stadium. I think that's about all we're going to be able to see from the outside of this one. Now let's make our way into the interior, and unfortunately couldn't find any street view images of the McDonald Jones Stadium, so it does mean just going to have to do here with some still images of the inside of the ground. First up, there's a blimp. That one looks like it was from before an NRL game, where I think they're taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. But going down one, here's what it does look like when the Jets are playing. Not quite a full stadium, it is fair to say, but a couple of banks there. It's a quite nice laid back atmosphere over in Newcastle. A couple of the stands too, with the red and blue that the Newcastle teams do traditionally wear, albeit not quite the case with the Jets. They usually wear a gold and blue number, do the Jets, but that's what the stadium does look like on the inside. Pretty decent football ground, good shape for both league and for the footy. And we'll come back shortly and hopefully keep up our good record against the Jets and keep some pressure somewhat on the Central Coast near the top of the A-League. And here are the team sheets for this clash with the Jets, and there they are first up. As you can see, not in good form, and they're going with a 4-2-3-1. Hopefully that is a team we can get the better of, especially without a manager, and especially because Ronaldo's back at the right wing. Just one change from our usual best 11, to be fair. That's becoming a bit more constant. A Tamer over Sullivan in the DM role, and hopefully we can make it 3 wins in a row and stay second on the table before that Sydney FC clash. And a very quiet game so far, but eventually get our first highlight here just past the half-hour mark, and it is a thrown inside of the final third. It finds its way there to Ronaldo down the right-hand side, back in the team. Will he take on the shot? Yes, he will. Get some help from the post, but puts that one away past Scott, and Ronaldo's back and does score a goal here in Newcastle, and we take a 1-0 lead with, I think that is, only the second shot of the game there. He does his man there down that right hand side and beats Scott there from a tight angle, albeit does get a lot of help from the woodwork, but Ronaldo's back and makes it 1-0. And it looks like that might be the lone highlight here of this first half, 1-0 thanks to that Ronaldo strike, albeit in the first minute of 2 of added time. We do have a free kick here, albeit deep inside of our own half. Stefan Malk plays that one back to Pascali, and now Taylor Tamer, as I said earlier, these days probably the first choice DM, just seeing as he has a bit more potential than someone like Nick Sullivan. But we do now start to get on the attack, and inside of the opposition half, Tamer is back on the ball, albeit as I say that, we play it back to our centre-backs, but Tormine on a yellow card. Poor pass there, but absolute mess at the back there from Newcastle. They try a back pass to their goalkeeper. It doesn't work, and Hassan Jalal is there to pounce on that one and make it 2-0. And that was an absolute gift there just before half-time to give us a buffer goal. Poor pass that from Tormine, looking for Ronaldo, but thankfully shocking work there from the Newcastle Jets centre-backs, and Jallo does make the most of it, and we're going to the sheds with a pretty fortunate 2-0 lead, especially because so far in this game, just 2 shots on target. But to be fair, Newcastle have done absolutely nothing, so I think we deserve a lead, just not too sure if it should be 2-0, and at half-time, we'll take off Tormine, did help set up that second goal, but on a yellow card, and for a 2-goal lead, we'll play things safe. Ihataran can come on for him, but pretty happy with how this one's going. 2-0 at half-time. And a very early highlight here in the second half off the back of Ihataran having just made his way onto the field. We're on the attack here down our right-hand side. Ronaldo plays it into the box for Callan Elliott. That's a 9 out of 10 dive, that one. We'll see if there was any contact from that challenge from Timmins. Waiting here for the VAR review, and the penalty does get awarded. Not too sure he'll be taking this with Tormine off the field. He's usually our penalty taker. This time it's Pascali. He sends the goalkeeper the wrong way. That makes it 3-0 nice and early in the second half. Just a second goal of the season here off the back of, I believe, a goal in our very first game this season against Sydney Olympic. when he did make his debut, but Pascali there, ice cold from the spot off back of that lovely effort from Callum Elliott to earn that penalty, and we're well in control here with a 3-0 lead, and also might play things safe here and take off Ronald. Had a good game, but we'll make sure he doesn't get injured. Jack Henry Sinclair to come on for him, and in fact off the back of that a highlight does start, and it might be a chance here for Newcastle to actually do something here somewhat on the counter-attack. But Hugler makes his way inside the box, tries to square that one for someone down that left-hand side. They are back on the attacker header, which goes just over the bar. Pretty safe highlight that one though, and we're still 3-0 in front early in the second half. And just before the hour mark, yet again here, Newcastle are on the attack. This time a corner, and it is Jacobo Molina who gets his head on the end of that one for his first ever goal for the Newcastle Jets. But it might be a case of too little too late, hopefully at least anyway. We don't fade away late like we did with the All Whites against Oman, but Newcastle do grab a goal back to make it 3-1 with a half hour left. And not too long off the back of that goal to Newcastle, going to make another sub here because the Bungo's going okay, but only on a 6.5 and getting closer to a red heart. Nathan Lobo to come on with 25 minutes left and that 3-1 lead. And just making our way now into the last 20 minutes of this game, and I think it's now time for us to make our last couple of subs just to make sure these players do come on the field and do get a rating. I think we're going to take off here. Stefan Malks on a fair rating. We'll bring on Louis Toomey to play in that cam role, which he doesn't do too often these days. And also Jallo will give him a rest, try and get some fitness into Gianni Bazookas coming back from his injury, and hopefully hold on to our 3-1 lead. And just making our way now into the last couple of minutes of this game, and to be fair, this one's been well under control since the early stages of the second half, and we did take that 3-0 lead. Newcastle did grab a goal back around about with a half hour to go, but thankfully since then haven't been up to too much, and we are on the attack here late, and Louis Toomey will score a goal. That one rather fortunately does get assisted by Teo Watama, but Toomey, I think that means he's now scored in back-to-back games for us here at AFC Auckland, despite the fact he has been coming off of the bench. But Atama tries to get a shot off there, gets blocked rather fortunately, did fall to Toomey, who just bangs that one home. A very opportunistic finish, and that does mean we'll pick up a pretty comfortable 4-1 win to start off today's episode. Newcastle definitely struggling this season, and obviously not having a manager also will not help them. We'll see if they rise up the table during the second half once they get someone to take permanent charge of them, but that is a good result to make sure we will stay in second going into the second game of today's episode, where we take on Sydney FC, and they could be a team who could potentially jump above us if they pick up a result in that game. But obviously Newcastle really struggling. Thankfully, we make the most of it and start off today's episode with a 4-1 win. We'll come back shortly, recap what happens in our cup game before we take on Sydney. And we are back about to take on Sydney FC in the second game of today's episode. Definitely the toughest one of the two that we're going to play today, and thankfully got the job done quite comfortably in the fourth round of the Australian Cup off the back of that win over the Newcastle Jets. Yet again conceded a goal, and yet again in the Cup we conceded the first goal as well to Philippe Lizard, but thankfully off the back of that, just before half-time, started to hit our stride. Goals to Sullivan, de Hotman, de Villiers, and Jack Henry Sinclair made sure we went into half-time with a 3-1 lead. In the second half, it was a double to Gianni Bazookas coming off the bench to make sure that we picked up a 5-1 win. To be fair, Sinclair could have actually made it 2 goals for him, but did miss a penalty off the back of Scopolitti getting a second yellow card. To be fair, I should really make sure that the player on a hat-trick does take those penalties from now on, because their Bazookas could have got a second half hat-trick, but that is a comfortable 5-1 win to see us through to the fifth round of the Australian Cup. We will be taking on Hume City that game in the early stages of December, and should be a bit tougher for us than that previous team that we did take on, seeing as they're up a division from that previous team. We beat 5-1, and also in much better form as well, albeit so far don't think they've had to face an A-League team in the Australian Cup. Yet again, you'd like to think that is a team that we can beat, albeit going into that game in the Australian Cup, we did suffer an injury in training, and it was to our backup goalkeeper in Stefan Marinovic. It was a pulled abdominal muscle. He's out for 7 more days to 2 weeks, so it does mean Alex Paulson did start in goal for that previous game and will do so again, albeit that is not unexpected, but it does mean coming up from our under-19s, it is Matthew Ford as the backup goalkeeper. But apart from that, I think we're going here with the same team as what we had for that first game, that 4-1 win over the Newcastle Jets, and hopefully we can make it 3 wins from 3 against yet another opposition in the save, this time in Sydney FC, a team who have been doing a much better job so far in this save. They're currently 5th on the table, actually can't go past us off the back of that win we picked up over the Newcastle Jets, and if we can win this one, we could close the gap on the Central Coast Mariners to only 1 point, which is a bit surprising off the back of that 3-0 hammering they gave out to us in yesterday's episode. But Ufuk Tully, hopefully we can keep a good record up over his men, and we'll come back shortly and hopefully make it 2 wins from 2 in today's episode at Mount Smart. And here are the team sheets for this one as we ran through before. Our team exactly the same as it was for that first game, apart from Ford coming onto the bench for the injured Marinovic. Hopefully can put out yet another good performance, scoring lots of goals. They are Sydney FC. They are going with the 4-4-2. Some good players in that team from last season, in particular Patrick Wood up front, but hopefully we can keep him quiet and close that gap on the Mariners yet again. And just past the 10-minute mark, we get the first highlight in this game. It is Sydney FC here who try and play their way out from the back. Cullen Elliott there does get a good foot in. Of course, we're in the hoops. Sydney FC are in the all sky blue with the white shorts, and yet again we do get a foot in there, and that time do win the ball. Nice ball over the top there for Hassan Jallow, just pokes that one over Andrew Redmayne, the wiggling goal, and I think he was onside. We'll see if the players start celebrating. They do, and the goal has been awarded. We take a nice early 1-0 lead there. Good work from Nunez at centre back, comes up a bit, plays it to Tormine. Nice ball over the top there. Jallow just sitting in between the centre backs and times his run perfectly and beats Redmayne in goal. And we take a nice early 1-0 lead here at Mount Smart. And very short effect of that opening goal, it's another highlight here potentially for us as we've thrown inside of the final third, albeit Cullen Elliott there nearly gives the ball away. Thankfully somehow does retrieve possession for us and gets it back this time from Pascali, albeit plays it back to him pretty shortly. Now Malk back there for Tormine, tries to put that one top left corner. Redmayne was rooted to the spot, but unfortunately just off target. But early stages, we're on the front foot and have a 1-0 lead. And for the first time in this game, it's actually Sydney FC now who are on the attack with a throw-in inside of the final third. Caceres makes his way inside the box and unleashes a shot, thankfully, from a tight angle. And Alex Paulson there must have come up with a save. Actually thought that one just went wide, but Paulson there makes sure it does stay at only 1-0. Now it's Sydney FC with the subsequent corner. They have the ball here on the edge of the box, but thankfully we put some good pressure on them and they play it back to the centre-back, albeit the highlight for now does continue. Now it stops and it remains 1-0 to Auckland. And with 10 minutes to go in the first half, yet again Sydney FC here might be on the attack with a throw-in, this time from the other side. Burgess makes his way inside the box, and Alex Paulson, kind of like in the All Whites game, he gets beaten there quite softly from a tight angle, and that makes it 1-1, and it's a frustrating goal to concede from a pretty simple throw-in routine there, but Burgess just sneaks that one inside the near post, and it's all locked up with about 10 minutes to go in the first half. Albeit now we're down the other end here on the 42-minute mark for a free kick, and Pascali's going to take this one, hopefully can float this one in to a big boy inside of the box. He can't, but it does find Jallow, who finds himself in a bit of space. Goes back now to Taylor Tamer, who will curve that one beautifully into the bottom right corner, his first goal this season, and that's a good goal for him considering last season most of his goals came through his head, being quite a tall lad, but thankfully not locked up for long in this one. That's a really poor read there from Sydney FC. Jallow can get on the ball. A Tamer, to be fair, was under pressure. That's a really good finish there to get it past Redmayne, and we're back in front 2-1 just shy of half time. And one more highlight here. There's a throw in our favour. Hopefully can strike twice and make it a misery. Compiler Nunez plays that one out to Debungo. It finds its way back to a nice 1-2 there with Tormine. Tight angle, but squares it for Lenaud. He will score yet another goal. Boy, he's a good player. Going to enjoy having him here at AFC Auckland, hopefully as well with the All Whites at some stage, provided we can keep hold of him with his wage, especially now that our budget has been reduced, albeit he is contracted to be here for a couple of years now. But lovely work there, a quick fire double just before half time to make it 3-1, and hopefully that's the scoreline that we can take into halftime does look like having the likes of Adam Mitchell and Ronald back for today's episode is certainly helping, and that's a good first half. Thankfully, bounced back from that equalising goal with a quick fire double to Atema and also to Ronald to make it 3-1. And we're going quite well. They don't need to make any changes. Get the second half underway with that 3-1 lead. And it hasn't taken long here in the second half for the first highlight corner here in our favour. We float that one into the mixer, and Stefan Malk, he is now on the ball. He goes down. Ronald was going to be on the attack there with a decent chance, but the referee has blown this up for a penalty. Might be a chance for us here to make it 4-1 from the spot, albeit Ronald might have done that anyway, and it's been given no penalty. So I'm really annoyed about that. Where's the advantage? Wanted to see what Ronald could do, but unfortunately we won't find out. Still 3-1. And just making our way now into the last half hour of this game, Ronald's hit a blinder, but yet again want to play things safe with him coming back from injury. Mohamed Hataran to come on for him as we still hold a 3-1 lead. And just making our way now into the last 20 minutes of this game, and I think it's time for us now to take off some players to make sure our subs do get a rating once they get on the field. So because of that, we're going to take off some players here on some deepest yellow hearts and only fair ratings. And Negro can come on for Elliott at right back. Also, we'll bring on Lobo for Debango at left back. To be fair, his form of late hasn't quite been the best, but to be fair, we're picking up wins in our last couple of games, it looks like, so we don't care. Stefan Malk, he can also come off yet again for Louis Toomey after he scored a goal in that previous game, and we'll take off Mitchell for Georgios Victoros. That's all our subs used, and we're still 3-1 in front with just under 20 minutes left. And only a couple of minutes on from those last couple of subs, now we're on the attack here, again looking to make it 2 4-1 wins in a row. Put that one into the mix. Hataran, he goes down inside the box, yet again it gets blown up for a penalty. We'll see if this one actually gets awarded. Of course, previously was not the case when Ronald had a pretty good chance, it felt like, to get a double against Sydney FC. This time the penalty does get awarded. That one actually looked a bit softer than the one that wasn't given. Torming with a chance here to put himself on the score sheet. Will bang that one home past Redmayne. He gets the right way, but too much power on it. And Gavin Torming will pick up his 8th goal of the season. That will make it 4-1. The same scoreline from that Newcastle Jets game. That is a very good penalty from our regular taker, and it should wrap this game up. 4-1 with only 10 minutes left. And just making our way into the last couple of minutes of this game, and thankfully both games in today's episode have been pretty comfortable watches for us here at AFC Auckland, albeit late free kick here to Sydney FC. Breton goes quite close there looking for that top left-hand corner just off target, but that is a very good win over a decent team in Sydney FC. Andrew Redmayne, the Wiggle, doesn't seem to enjoy playing us here at Auckland. He drops a 5.9, but thankfully got off to a good start there with an early yellow goal. They did strike back just before halftime through Burgess, but thankfully enough time for us to grab a quick fire double through Atema, and then through Ronald we get a second half penalty eventually, which Gavin Torming does put away, so we pick up a 4-1 win. To be fair, not the most dominant performance, certainly not as good as that previous game stats wise, where we did take on Newcastle, but Sydney, a much better team. A 4-1 win over them is definitely a good result, and it does mean we're only 1 point behind the Mariners coming up to the halfway point of the season. So 2 good 4-1 wins on camera during the course of today's episode over 2 teams from New South Wales in the Newcastle Jets and Sydney FC, and what that does for the A-League table as you saw before. Now only 1 point behind the Central Coast Mariners, and already a bit of a gap back to some other teams in the form of the Western Sydney Wanderers and the Melbourne Victory. So despite the fact we got thumped by Central Coast yesterday, actually keeping pace with them on the A-League table. Hopefully this time we can get the better of them and pick up our first league title of this save. But that will do it for today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it with those 2 wins over Newcastle and Sydney. If you did, then make sure to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We'll come back at the start of next week. I'm going to play the 2 big internationals off camera because they are coming up, where we take on Papua New Guinea in World Cup qualifying based on the AFC Nations Cup. That is a game we should well and truly be winning, and then also see how we get on when we take on Thailand. Off the back of that, we play MacArthur. They're down the bottom half of the table, so I think that's one we can skip over. So we might come back in late November, not too far from now, which will suit me, seeing as I'm about to take about a week off playing FM on my honeymoon, but we are going to be playing the Melbourne Victory at AAMI Park. Those guys doing quite well this season in fourth. Of course, don't need to do a bus trip for that one. Already did AAMI Park in one of the early episodes of this series. And then, I think for one of the first times on camera in this save, we'll also take on Adelaide United. Those guys are struggling, especially these days, without the likes of Nestori Irankunda. But at Mount Smart, hopefully we can pick up some more points from that one and keep ourselves right near the top of the A-League and keep the pressure on the Mariners with just that 1 point gap currently. Hopefully we might find a way to sneak above them during the course of that next episode. So we'll come back at the start of next week, recap what happens in that international window, especially that World Cup qualifier against PNG before we take on the Melbourne Victory and Adelaide United. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.